Hey, this is Sam from Team, and you're listening to Breakdowns for Breakfast.
Good morning, welcome back to another episode of Breakdowns for Breakfast. I am Danger, and joining me is a fellow that I cannot properly break down an album without, Monster. Say hi, Monster.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Oh, you're supposed to stop asking me how I am.
Yeah, just, I'm a caring kind of guy.
Yeah, you are. I'm fine. How are you?
Well, I was not expecting you to reciprocate. Kind of put me on the spot here.
All right, so on this episode of Breakdowns for Breakfast, we are going to be talking about, we're going to be continuing Ladies Month, where we pick a band that has a female-fronted band. And this week we are going to be talking about Spiritbox's album Eternal Blue, released September 17th, 2001. Now, Monster, had you listened to this album before we decided to take this one on?
It was released in 2021, not 2001.
Yeah, it was 2021, not 2001.
Yeah, no, I had listened to this album a few times before you mentioned it. We've discussed on this show previously on the I Wrestled a Bear Once episode a little bit about Courtney LaPlante, and
did we ever figure out, is it LaPlante or LaPlante?
No, we never did.
Or LaPlante.
It's probably LaPlante. That sounds good.
The plant.
I'm sure she appreciates that.
Yes, she's the plant.
Yes. But no, I had listened to this album when it came out. I've been keeping an eye on this band for a little while now. I hadn't gone back and listened to it since it first came out, though, like giving it a real thorough listen. So this was sort of a retread, but also kind of a refresher for me. How about you? I'm going to assume you saw them live at some point.
No. All right. So they played Blue Ridge 2 years in a row, and I wanted to go see them, and I don't remember who it was now, but there was always a band playing that I wanted to see more.
That's why I hate those stupid festival things. You're never going to see everybody you want to see.
Yeah, and the years that they played, it was so spread out that there was no way to really get over and see enough of the show to really make it worth it. And then the year that they actually, kind of shrunk things down a bit and you could actually get from stage to stage within time was the year that everything went to shit.
Perfect.
Yeah. So have I ever seen Spiritbox? No, I haven't. But a while back, I cannot remember. I think it was Rise Records actually was doing a little special on their website with merchandise, and the Eternal Blue cassette tape was on there for $5. I said yes, and I bought it. And I got that in a Memphis May Fire tank top for $10 total.
Do you have a cassette player in your car, right?
Not in my car, but I do upstairs have a turntable, CD player, cassette deck combo thing.
Classic.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So I have been able to play it, but I can't tell you that I put it in and listened to it. I put it in. It was I'm playing a cassette, and that was that. But no, so I have that. But I have listened to this album before we decided to talk about it. I listened to it somewhat. I didn't really listen to the whole thing. I kind of just hit a few songs that I wanted to hear off of it. But yeah, I didn't sit down and listen to the entire album the way that we do. Of course, not the way that we do before actually deciding to put this on the list for this episode.
You know what? And what you just said leads me to a point that I'm going to make about this album. You put it on and you hit the songs that you really like. And I think that's sort of where I'm at on this album as a whole. There's a couple of songs on this album that I think are world beaters, that I think are just cream of the crop, chef's kiss, no notes. As far as this genre goes, leaps and bounds above their contemporaries. And then there's a bunch of songs that just sound like their contemporaries, and it doesn't sound all that unique to me. So I was really kind of being pulled back and forth whenever I would sit and listen to the whole thing.
So, okay, when you talk about the ones that just kind of sound like their contemporaries, I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't feel like any song sounds like a contemporary entirely. And the thing about the entirety of the song, yes, there'll be a section that sounds like they're contemporaries, but they do a really good job of kind of knowing where to place that and knowing what to put before it and after it. And sure, when a song gets heavy, it gets heavy. It gets real heavy. But it's like it has a good kind of warm up to it at times. Other times it just smacks you in the face. But then this album does a really, 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 really good job. I love this album, by the way. I'm going to put it up front. I love this album. So they do a really good job of pacing on this album. I don't think there was a single time I listened to this album where the fatigue ever set in. Because it's like as soon as I'm starting to get to that fatigue point, the next song brings it back down and is exactly what I need at that point to keep from going too far over. Or we get like the beginning of the next song will bring it down, and then it'll bring it back up at a certain point, which leads into the next song, which is heavier. Or we get a fair amount of dynamics within this album.
And I will say, to clarify, generally speaking, I think Spiritbox is better than the bulk of their contemporaries. Just for me personally, there's and we'll get into it when we get into the song by song, but there's a certain flavor of their music that I really, really enjoy. And so I think I love it so much that when they start dabbling in some of the other stuff, it doesn't connect with me as strongly. And it's weird because it's not really a soft or a heavy thing, because I would say my two favorite songs on this album, one is a little softer, but one is arguably the heaviest one on here. So I can't really put my finger on it exactly, but there's just something about a couple of these songs that have really stuck with me, and then a few that have sort of just kind of washed over me.
All right, I'm going to need you to put your finger on it, and I don't mean like finger Spiritbox, or because I'm pretty sure Courtney's husband, Michael Stringer, who's the guitar player, would have an issue with it, which actually that kind of leads me to something I wanted to say. So this album...
please get off of this fingering discussion.
So this album only has 3 members on it. It doesn't have 4. Now, if you look at their pictures, it has 4 in it. So one, Courtney LaPlante, which is the lead vocals, that's all she does, while her husband, Michael Stringer, plays guitar, bass, drums, and does backing vocals on tracks 2, 3, 6, and 11. But then Zev Rosenberg plays the drums on everything else that Michael doesn't.
Now, was Michael in I Wrestled a Bear Once as well?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
Both Courtney and Michael left I Wrestled a Bear, and it's almost like they left to do this. I couldn't really find anything about there was a stretch of time between the 2 projects, but I mean, I ain't mad.
Okay, so one thing I'll point out is the album we did, which I think is, Late for Nothing, maybe. I don't remember which one it was, but
yes, it was Late for Nothing.
Okay, it was the first album they did with Courtney. They did a second one called Hail Mary, and Hail Mary is probably my least favorite I Wrestled a Bear Once album, because all of that kooky, weird, silly stuff that kind of made I Wrestled a Bear Once was gone.
I Wrestled a Bear Once. I Wrestled a Bear Once.
Yeah, and Hail Mary got very dark, and all the humor was gone. Even the song titles. None of the song titles had those like silly names like their previous albums. And you could tell there was a shift happening. So my uneducated guess would be that Courtney joined the band, wanted to take it in a more serious direction. Her and what's his name?
Michael Stringer.
Michael. They, were obviously getting involved with each other romantically, decided to take what they started in I Wrestled a Bear Once into a more serious and obviously lucrative direction with Spiritbox. And
I would say lucrative is right, because Spiritbox is doing way better off of one album.
Oh, sure.
Now with that, Spiritbox has only put out this one album as an album. Like everything else he put out have been singles or EPs. And
right,
some of those have been really good. I've not had a problem with them, but this is their only full album, which I'm interested to see what they're going to do in the future.
Me too. Me too. I feel like at time of recording this, they are on tour with Korn and Gojira, and I'm actually wearing my Korn tour shirt from a couple years ago. I think I went to the wrong one because I went to the Korn tour with the 68 and Stained, and I think Gojira and Spiritbox would have been a much more fun show.
Probably. I don't really know the 68, but from what I've heard, I think you picked the wrong one.
Yeah, no, 68 is like one or two guys from Norma Jean. Yeah, okay. It's some of their ex-members or something. And no, it's not great. And Stained, well, Stained is what Stained is. Right. And from what I've seen, Korn's actually been, I don't know if it's taken Spiritbox, a younger band, out on the road with them, but from everything I've seen, Korn has been a little bit more on point this tour as well. So I wouldn't be shocked if that was trying to play after Gojira and Spiritbox every night.
I gotta say that I think Korn is maybe wising up in their old years. I don't feel like Korn actually has put out a good tour in a while. So, yeah. Maybe
they still put out pretty decent albums though. Their most two recent ones are pretty solid. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Korn.
All right. We're not here to talk about Korn. So let's talk about Eternal Blue. The producer on it is a gentleman named Daniel Braunstein. Braunstein. Is that Steen or Stain? I don't know. But
but it's a strong name either way.
It is a strong name. I couldn't find too much on Mr. Braunstein, but I did find that he was in a prog metal band called Volumes. And,
yeah.
Okay. And then he produced an album by like one of your favorite bands, a band that we actually talked about on this this show before. He produced the Dayseeker album Dark Sun, which is the follow-up to Sleep Talk.
Yay!
So, speaking of Dayseeker, I'm actually going to see them in like 2 weeks. So, yeah.
I wonder if that album is just as boring as the other one you made me listen to.
Okay, we're done. I'm done. I quit. So anyway, yes. All right. So let's talk about Eternal Blue because I'm quite interested in your full opinion about this album. So
well, and to Braunstein's credit, the production on this album is stellar. It has that nightclub core vibe that we've talked about before, with a little bit of beeps and bloops,
but they're not. I didn't find that the beeps and bloops were overwhelming.
No, they never are. They add a lot of character and a lot of flavor. They're used tastefully, but it also has that real low, has that dark, moody atmosphere throughout as well. There
is one place that I am going to pick on the mixing a little bit. I'm going to bring it up because I felt like it was just not good there. But I'll talk about that when we get there. So all right, so track 1, Sun Killer. Alright, so we start the album out with like what I feel like is probably the best introduction of an album, where it doesn't come in loud. It comes in with just this slow electronic pulse. Like, it let you know that you hit play and, just kind of like introduced you and warmed you up to the album. And then go on. Sorry.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I like the way this one starts, and then Courtney's voice as it kind of trickles in is real nice. Right, and then we get that like high pitched synth kind of back and forth. Which is something that I picked up way more in headphones, but I don't feel like this is a headphones album. There's one track on here I feel like is a headphones track, but I mean, overall, I didn't really get a whole lot more out of through headphones. But then a little bit later on,
But very low in the background, we start hearing a little bit of guitar chug, like just a little bit. But then, you know, there's like these ethereal sounds that start where she starts to sing on top of it.
Yeah, this was giving me a little bit of Bad Omens, that opening track, Concrete Jungle, where it just sort of like keeps on building and building. But where I start to struggle is I like the build. I love her voice. I like the creepy synth notes in the background. But then when it gets to that end where it's the Sun Killer Sing Me to Sleep part, and she starts to scream it, and it's really abrasive. I don't know. Like, that's where it starts to lose me. Like, I liked all the build up. I love her voice when it's clean like that. And then that part just, it's fine. Like, that's what I mean. Like, I like the song more than I dislike it, but I don't know. Like, it's cool.
All right. So for this entire track, we just get like the chugging in the background, and then it moves more into the foreground, and she's singing on top of these ethereal sounds, and then we get more of the chugging once it starts to get louder, and then we get the drop into the bridge, which is that Sun Killer Sing Me to Sleep.
Killer, sing me to sleep. Sun Killer.
Which I thought was great, because I just thought it was a great mix of what it was. And then it's like it comes out of it at 3:05 and drops into what I feel like was probably one of the biggest breakdowns of the album. And then she's screaming on top of it, and that guitar, it reaches new levels of low for playing a guitar. In Silent Planet, the dive bomb, you talked about how it drug your shoulders down. I kind of felt the same way in this. Like, I kind of felt it was like, ugh, but I like it.
Yeah, kinda. I agree with you. I don't know. It's one of those things, I think, that the first time you hear it, it's so heavy and gnarly that it really just like blows your mind a little bit.
Right.
But every subsequent time, you know it's coming, and it felt a little less impactful, if that makes sense.
No, I get that, but I mean, I think I listened through this album, I don't know, probably 3 times, like with intention, play in the background a bunch, and every time I looked forward to it. It was almost like the way that the Sun Killer Sing Me to Sleep starts, where before she starts screaming it, I thought was a great thing. Now,
I like that part.
For opening tracks, I thought this was a great one, because every part of what this song is, you get throughout this album.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I agree. It is a good opener.
All right, so let's talk track 2, Hurt You. You may disagree with me, but that intro is nasty.
I love this one. This one is right in my wheelhouse. Big new metal vibes on this one for sure.
Oh yeah, like it was almost like the first time I listened to this all the way through, I got done and went, "Oh, Monster's gonna be happy."
Yeah. I love that intro. The little high pitch, like wow, 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 in the background can be like, depending on the mood, a little bit annoying, but not so much that it ever like detracted me from the song. I do like the second verse better than the first, because there's this neat guitar riff and like a little bit funky rhythm.
I'll agree with you completely on that.
Yeah, so, and then the bridge, again, it's like, this song is really cool and has a vibe all of its own, but then the bridge just sort of has that deathcore, metalcore, core sound. Like, it doesn't...
It has a core sound. All right.
Yeah,
so,
like,
all right,
it has a core sound.
Before we get into the bridge, let's talk about before the bridge. All right.
Yeah.
So, all right. the way she screams in this, it's almost like a scream sing. It's kind of on the lower, not like low as in like deep, but it's on like the lower scream side of things. Like it's almost got to sing along with it. And it's like she could like turn that into a singing, because obviously she's got an amazing singing voice. And she could turn into that real quick. But then the chorus was good, but that post-chorus that happens, it's like this like section after the chorus that comes in. The guitars are heavy, and she kind of does this like, oh, and it's awesome. I love it. But then she goes to her clean vocals, and her clean vocals sound so damn good on this track. Just so good.
They really do. I think that chorus is just money in the bank. And because she is who she is, she's a very nice looking woman. She's got a ton of stage presence, and that chorus is so hooky that even though she is screaming the verses, this is still like radio friendly in a way. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. So again, I don't listen to a ton of radio or XM. I know XM has like Octane, and I guarantee they play Spiritbox on there. Okay. So and I think they have a music video for this one, which makes perfect sense. This is a standout for me. Now,
I know that I've tried to watch some music videos in the past, but I actually just didn't look Spiritbox up on YouTube at all. So I don't know. I did see a video for a song on this album, but you know, it was just because I was looking up stuff and a while back and came across it. So, you know.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. I remember a few videos, and I remember this being one of them. I can kind of see it in my head, but no, I really like this song. This one I'm really...
So her vocals sound really good. And then 208 happens, the beginning of the bridge. And this is the part that I was talking about before, where it's like the one biggest error they made in mixing. Her vocals sounded so good. The scream, the sing, all of it. Great. And then at 208, they said, you know what? What if we put her in the very back of the mix and put everything else on top of her? And then we're going to just let her do her thing and let her exist behind everything else, which I have no problem with letting the other instruments shine. But then all those instruments are going to stop, but we're not going to bring her volume up anymore. We're going to call this maneuver the lacking impact.
From a marketing standpoint, if you think about this as a single, quote unquote, it would make sense that the harshest screaming vocal she does would be pushed down a little in the mix. So I didn't really pick up on that. But again, like I said, that was sort of the only weak spot of the song for me. I don't hate the bridge. I just think that the verse is got such a cool groove and the chorus is so hooky that, you know, like the bridge, I would have gone in a more melodic direction for the bridge here, in my personal taste.
No, I get that. I get that. Especially considering her vocals are probably one of the strongest things about this band. And they pulled her vocals way into the back on that one. And I didn't like it. So they come out of the bridge into probably the quickest breakdown ever. I mean, it's fast. And something I meant to say in the beginning, but I really noticed it on 2, and then every track after that, they push every song to the very end. There's a couple of fade outs here, but they're so quick. But it's usually like a tapering off of whatever the sound is. And I mean, every song is just packed completely full. And none of the songs are super long on this album. So, all right. You ready to talk about track 3?
Yeah, I guess.
All right. Track 3, Yellow Jacket, featuring Sam Carter of Architects. What was that look? That okay?
Well, I wasn't sure what band he was from. You know, I assumed it was a band from kind of this scene, and that makes sense. The way this song starts is gnarly.
Yes.
I almost got like KMFDM industrial vibes, but then you got that really nasty bow 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 guitar. Love it.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. I loved it.
And then, especially after Mr. Carter shows up, I kind of lose interest in it.
Okay, so they put a distortion on Mr. Carter's vocals. And that's Sam Carter, not Mr. Carter as in Jay-Z. But they put...
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Mr. Carter is his father.
Right, Mr. Carter is his father. So, okay. They put a vocal distortion, or they put a distortion on his vocals that made me think that plenty of other people could have done it. I didn't feel the need for him to be on this song.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you've got a guest vocalist from a well-established band. This is the third track on your album. Like, I guess I wanted to be wowed, and it's just fine. Like, I like the bouncy and the heavy and the mix of the beeps and the boops, but then, like, when he's doing that, like, his scream vocal over top of really sparse music, I don't know. Like, that part wasn't working for me very well.
So this was kind of an odd one for me because I didn't necessarily feel like he was needed in this song. I feel like this was something that she could have done completely by herself. I didn't see the addition of Sam Carter as being anything to the song. And vocally, I thought the song was fine. I mean, it's 3 minutes, 18 seconds. Mm-hmm. And the first 2 minutes of it, I thought it was fine. It was at 1:55 where I went, oh, I like this. Like, you gave me 2 minutes of okay. Like, you gave me a damn good intro. And then, okay, we're fine, we're listening to it. And then 1:55, there is this, like, lead-in to the breakdown that is just, it's like, a lot of times bands will stick a breakdown in. Like, we dealt with this a lot on the A Day to Remember album, where they were sticking breakdowns in. And yeah. I feel like this was a breakdown they were like, okay, we need to put a breakdown of the song, but we're not going to just do the song and then do the breakdown. We're going to have a transition to it. And it happened at 1:55, and it was awesome. Then there's a scream in the into the breakdown that was so good. It's like this deep growl. Oh, like it made me get the stink face. But that breakdown, I thought of you completely in it because it is the most nu metal breakdown.
It's got to bounce. It's got to chug. A lot of these songs do. It's just, I don't know, man. There's just this one in particular. How do I say this? They're almost shooting themselves in the foot by having such cool, unique intros.
Fair.
Because the intro to this song is so cool and wacky that the song that follows it just doesn't live up to it for me personally.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Now let me say, I did have a lot of nice things to say about Hurt You, but I've been kind of back and forth and wishy-washy on these first three. The section that we're about to get into is my section, the monster section. Okay. So we've been not arguing, but you have been way more positive than I have been for the first three songs. I am about to gush with you for a few minutes.
Okay. All right, then let's move past the most nu metal breakdown on this album. And let's talk about track 4, The Summit.
song is perfect. I love everything about this song. It's got this beautiful, clean guitar tone. Her vocals live in this lower register that she hasn't really sang in yet on the album, that I think it's moody, but it's sensual, it's strong, but it's vulnerable. I love her voice on this song. And then that chorus is just money in the bank again. It gets heavier, but it still has a groove, and there's no screaming. It's still very super catchy. God, I absolutely love this song. And I want to talk about the bridge part too, but I'll let you say some stuff before I just ramble for 10 minutes straight.
All right. So on track 1, we got like the first half was this like guitar chugging, like her singing pretty, into just guttural break your face. It's like Spiritbox is here. And then we get 2 songs of like nothing but like happy anger. And then Spiritbox made a great move here because they knew that they had to bring it down. They knew that they had to slow the roll a little bit because they've got so much heavy in other places on this album that if they put another heavy song after it, then the fatigue would start to set in. And this is what I was talking about at the beginning. The fatigue never really set in for me. And I think the way that they threw these songs in there was on purpose, and it was a great move. Now, this song, Courtney LaPlante, I don't know. Courtney LaPlante. She channels her inner Amy Lee, and and I think this is where she like closed her eyes in the vocal booth and was like, "I'm at Lilith Fair."
Yeah, but she does it so well.
Oh, she absolutely does. She absolutely does.
And on top of that modern rock guitar work and bouncy drums, it's just incredible. Like, I think it works perfectly. Now, you said Amy Lee. You know who, especially at 222, when you get that vocal harmonization thing going on? You know who she started to remind me of just a little bit?
Who?
Imogene Heap.
Okay.
Specifically that section, because of that vocal harmonization thing that she's doing. It has a very Vessel meets Imogene Heap thing happening, which again, all in on all of that.
Right.
I just think the way she sings that verse in that lower register is just great. And I don't know a lot of other female singers that have as much range, you know, key wise, that she does.
So this was a song where I felt the same thing, where I was like, she's got quite the range, but she's also got quite the control over that voice.
Yes. And
that's something that I've found on this song more than anywhere else, because it was like, wait a second, she's done this like back and forth between the pretty singing and the growling and the screaming, but this is where she's really controlling the pretty part of it. And it's like, okay, we know she can get nasty, but it's like, my God, she can really flutter within this pretty range. You know, it was really impressive to hear.
So I think you're starting to understand why I'm sort of torn with this, because this is probably my favorite song on the album. And not that there's not stuff that sounds like this in other parts, but this song is a little bit of an anomaly. There's nothing that sounds quite like this anywhere else on the album. So I think you can start to see why I'm a little bit divided on everything.
Okay, no, I can totally see that. But, you know, as we go out of the song, it's like the last, I don't know, probably 20 seconds is like a very pop ending. It's just a full-on pop song at that point.
I like that part too.
All right, so let's talk about track 5, Secret Garden. mentioned before that they sound like so many of their contemporaries. Mm-hmm. Now, this song and the next song, I referenced two other bands because I kind of felt like they were the strongest influences on these songs.
Let's see if we have the same bands. Who were you feeling on this one?
Savage Garden. No, Tesseract.
Okay, well, because I thought it had a little bit of an Issues vibe, because it has a little bit of that like nightclub core thing happening.
Have a good time. This time I will let it wash you out of my mind.
Do you know why it's got such a nightclub core thing happening?
Why?
Because that bass is so damn funky on this song.
Okay, so that's, if I'm not mistaken, that's just a clean guitar where they're doing like tapping with. I Wrestled a Bear once had all kinds of that, like beeloo, 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 like double tapping, which is basically what he's doing there, but it sounds like it's on a clean guitar. It could be on a bass, honestly, but it's whatever it is, it's not super distorted. So I wrote in my notes that said the second verse as this neat, slappy, clean guitar. That is a fun little addition.
Yeah. Okay, so what I will say is that I kind of feel the same way about this as I did elsewhere on this album, that it's fine. Like, this song is fine up until a certain point. And then, you know, at 2:34, okay, so this is 3:39. This is this entire song. So 2:34, like, I enjoyed it up to this point. But at 2:34, it definitely picks up, and that's where it becomes a Spiritbox song. Before that, it felt like it felt like a very generic song within this genre.
See, and I disagree, because coming out of the Summit, which I said was my favorite, I love the way she was singing on that one. This one kind of just jumps right in. Her voice again really carries this song. I love on the verse, there's this like little tag at the end of each verse where she sings this really nice line. I love that. And then the chorus kind of plays with tempos. And again, her voice is just like knocking it out of the park. Every time she says the word, I know, and it kind of does that sort of falsetto higher thing. It just sounds so sweet and so good. The like breakdown heavy thing is almost like tacked on, and I could take it or leave it. You're saying that's what defines a Spiritbox song for you, so cool, that's fine. But for me, that's like, that part's fine. Like, I like that it gets really heavy, and there's also cool little piano mixed in there with the heavy, which is all fine, which is all cool. But like, the verse and the choruses on this one is what stands out to me.
So I want to go back and say I didn't hate this one by any means, but the song, it was almost like it was two different parts or two different songs they put together. And if that's the case, that's fine, because I like both parts, but I like the second part better. Now, that second part only really lasts for about a minute, but yeah, you know, I definitely like both parts, but that first part was fine. I didn't have a big issue with it, and I think it's a bass. Okay, I think it's a bass. I'm going to say it's a bass. You could say it's a clean guitar, whatever. I don't know. The chorus is way stronger than the verse on this song, but that bass is the star.
It's a clean stringed instrument. We'll leave it at that.
It's not a piano, though, because they got a piano elsewhere in the song.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. All right, so track 6, Silk in the Strings. I had to be careful about how I was saying that, because I was reading it earlier going, silk, sick, and the string, like, it just, for some reason, it just wouldn't stick.
It's a very weird name. Very
Silk
weird
in
name.
the Strings. Yeah, it's a tongue twister of a song name. So, all right.
Good.
This is one of the heaviest songs on this album.
It is.
But I compared it to Code Orange and Between the Buried and Me.
This to me, and I know you didn't listen to it, but this to me is very much what that last I Wrestled a Bear Once album sounded like.
Yeah.
This right here. I was getting huge I Wrestled a Bear Once vibes. Again, specifically that Hail Mary record. So for me, in a weird sort of way, almost felt nostalgic. Like it felt like a little throwback to some of their other stuff.
Did you like it better because you felt the nostalgia in it?
Yeah, like it felt less like modern metalcore, newcore kind of stuff, and it felt more like that weird thrashy technical death metal stuff that I Wrestled a Bear Once was doing. So for me, I like this one better than some of the other heavy ones.
Well, I feel like that kind of goes along with what Code Orange and Between the Buried and Me were, because they were both, they were both kind of on that left field and doing the strange syncopated things, and it was fun. I saw Between the Buried and Me a couple times, and I always enjoyed it.
That's one of those bands that I've never really been able to like sit down and listen to. I probably should. I'd probably like it more than I think I would. But I have seen them live, and they were obviously really fun live. That's a neat show.
I can't tell you the last time I sat and listened to them, but I've seen them live several times, and it's fun.
Yeah, so this one is probably the heaviest song, but I do really like it. The section at 132 was probably giving me the biggest I Wrestled a Bear Once vibes. There's even some parts where the guitars do that like sort of harmonize but dissonance, like they're one key off from each other. Right. I like that when they do that. So yeah, even though this one is brutal, I still like it more than some of the other ones.
Well, see, I said this is heavy, but it doesn't feel brutal because of the synth breaks that we get throughout the song. Like it never felt brutal. The only time it felt closer to brutal was there was this solo that happened at 228 following her stutter, is what I was calling it. And, it's obviously a digitally manipulated stutter. But it's a dive bomb solo. Like, there's so much of it that just kind of dive bombed. I don't know how else to put it.
Wow.
Right. All right. Track 7, Holy Roller. Now, this is the song that I watched the video for. This was, I think this is probably their biggest song that people know. This is a crowd favorite at shows, but there's another song that is more of a crowd favorite and people get more excited about. But Holy Roller is probably my favorite track off of this album, and I think that probably leads back to it's probably one of the first songs I heard by them. Of course, I heard I Wrestled a Bear Once before, ever hearing Spiritbox. The lady actually saw Spiritbox with Under Oath and somebody else a while back, and she actually got a Holy Roller t-shirt at the show.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is probably my second favorite song on the album.
And because it's rightfully so.
Yeah, because this song, it is brutal, but it has... God, there's just so many cool things going on. I like the creepy intro.
How can you dislike the intro?
The intro is
it's just a damn cool intro. Yeah.
And then when that riff kicks in, it is just so heavy, but the drums have this like great bounce and groove to it. Like you almost do that like hip hop, like neck bob thing, like that chicken head thing to it.
Oh yeah.
Instead of like actually head banging.
Yeah.
The way she screams too has a nice rhythm to it that if she would have came in too like rah, 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 it would have kind of thrown everything off. But it's really just like like it's
Right.
spaced out better. All of that works really, really well.
All right, so I said out of the intro enters a pummeling riff because it's like the
Pummeling.
guitars, yes, pummeling. And it's the only word I could come up with for it because it just felt like you were just being beat down by happiness in every way. Like it felt so good. But there's a break at 108 that happens. And it's like the band knew, like, we have to give a break here because people have to catch their breath because this has been pummeling for a minute, 8 seconds.
Yeah, you got that. I think it's called "Amen, Brother" is the name of the song. It's like an old Motown song or something, but that particular beat that they're sampling there has been sampled in like a million other rock and metal songs over the years. Yeah. It's like the little drum solo of that old song sped up and like digitized. But yeah, that particular beat, like if you stick it in here, everybody that listens to rock and metal music, especially those with a little bit of an industrial twinge, have heard that beat before.
Yeah. I probably have and just don't realize it. So
yeah, it's a very common little music sample that's been used for a long time now. But I agree. It's like it gives you just enough time to sort of like recoup and prepare yourself for the rest of the song.
Because then we come out of this into more just pummeling screams and greatness until the bridge. And then this bridge happens that she screams, but it's got this like sporadic, like not over sporadic drums. Like, I don't know. Like, it's like the rest of the instruments drop out. And she screams over these drums, and it's like if the drums weren't there, then it would just feel like this empty bridge of her screaming. But it's like it's saved by these like kind of sporadic drums that happen. But the sporadic drums are well placed.
Yeah, everything about this song is cool. There's not a part I don't like. I think there's a reason this one. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, thinking back on it, I kind of remember they were releasing singles for a while.
Yes.
And I remember sort of being intrigued. Every time they released something, I was interested because I was such a big I Wrestled a Bear Once fan. And I could hear Courtney's voice had just taken these leaps and bounds, and she had gotten so much more control over her voice. The songwriting was getting tighter. So I was very interested. And I think it was about the time they released this one that I was like, I'm going to follow this band. I'm going to pay attention. And when they put stuff out, I'm going to listen to it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, track 8, Eternal Blue. The title track. After the pummeling beatdown that Holy Roller was, Courtney comes in with clean vocals. It was a very smart move. You know, this whole track is a smart move. And this is more of what I was talking about before, that they pace out these songs that have this like this feeling more like in a good place.
This is another
smart.
One of my favorites. Weird sounds like during the intro, there's the little telephone noise, not that. The little digital kind of soundscape that's kind of in there. You know what it reminded me of? The save room music in the Resident Evil games. Because it had that same like peaceful and tranquil, but it's still like in a dark place. I really, really dug that. And then as the song kicks in, her voice again just sounds like $1,000,000.
It's not that you open my heart, folding like a rug.
Everything about this one is cool too. There's this part at 2:37 where it locks into this just like real simple one chord chug. But just feels so good. And then there's even like a nice little like lyrical kind of guitar solo in there near the end that I think is a real nice little touch. Obviously, Michael is an incredible guitar player. He can do some insane stuff. This is more riff based. There's not a lot of shredding and a lot of solos on this album, so it was cool to hear him do a little bit right there.
Right. Okay, so the song still gets heavy, but her vocals stay clean. And personally, I feel like her headphones were a little bit too far back in the mix on this one. Like after it got heavy, like in the choruses and stuff, like I just felt like her vocals should have been pushed up a little bit. But it didn't really detract too much from it, especially considering I felt like this was the headphone track of the album. Because those soundscapes you were talking about, I didn't really pick up on too much without headphones on. And it was when I put headphones on that her vocal, like where her vocals were placed, sounded good. Sounded fine.
I listened to this in the car a couple times, and I've said before, you know, my speakers in my car are pretty good, so crank it up, and I could really feel that sort of space. Like that's an interesting thing to think about it, because you've got the guitars, you've got the bass, you got her vocals, but all the empty space is being filled with these other melodies and these other, sometimes ethereal, sometimes it's just like, I never really picked up on that as a musician even until, I don't know, maybe it was like 10, 12 years ago. Being a big 311 guy, there were these websites where you could go and you could listen to individual band members' monitor mixes while they were on stage. And Chad, one of his like highest thing in the mix was the like ambient sound that was like in the background of every song. And it was like, yeah, there's some bass, there's some vocals, but then there's also like all of these beepy boopy sound effects. And I'm like, God, if you're not really paying attention, that stuff just goes completely like into your subconscious. So they do a lot of that on this album, but I think on this song in particular, it's a little bit more pronounced, and I like it a lot.
Okay, so before it gets heavy, now I do want to say, like, when it gets heavy, that guitar is so damn good. I'm going to agree with you completely on that. Like, he shines there. But before it gets heavy, I had this weird thing. Like, I kept getting this image of, it was like a 90s movie, but it was a montage of kids stealing CDs from like Sam Goody and FYE and stuff, stores like that.
You say 90s, but like you could almost see this as a montage during Stranger Things or something too.
Fair.
Yeah, I see that. I get that.
So I thought when I typed that out, I was like, I don't know if that's going to make any sense, but it did. So
Resident Evil save room music or kids stealing stuff at a Blockbuster, one or the other.
Getting into trouble at the mall, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so track 9, We Live in a Strange World.
I was straight seam and naive until stones and plastic diamonds that made me heavy and rolling to a stop.
My first note on this one is Spiritbox goes pop.
So this is, like I mentioned on that song earlier with the harmonized vocals, this whole song feels like Imogene Heap meets Sleep Token.
I think that's actually more of what they were going for here, because I have similar. I have Sleep Token, and I have Lilith Fair type meets.
Yeah, because you've got sort of that empty music with this big, strong pop vocal on top. And then when it kicks in around 124, it's heavy, but it's still really pretty, and it still has the same like mood to it.
Well, it's like the rhythm hit a stride, and I put 125, you put 124. You know, we'll agree to disagree. sir.
What? Well, technically, it was 124 and 0.63 milliseconds, but I didn't know you wanted to get in the weeds.
Don't patronize me. So, okay. So this song brings out the synth that the rest of the record was kind of just dabbling in. And just kind of put it into a full song. Like that was the basis for the whole song. But then the rhythm really hits that stride at 125, but it doesn't lose what it had built before at all by any means.
Right.
You know, the guitar is amazing in the second half of this song. I wouldn't say that this is like my favorite track here, but this is one that I listened to the whole time going, I like this a lot. So,
yeah, because everything you just said, and then there's this real big chord shift and big vocal around 151 that I think is really, really nice. And then just kind of keep it interesting. They kind of change up the tempo a little bit there at the end of the song. Again, just to kind of keep it moving. Yeah, this is another one that is right up there as one of my favorites for sure.
Okay, so something that I noticed about this, and I actually listened to this song several times over, and this song is 2:48. It's one of the shorter tracks here. But the thing about it is, they ended this song when it needs to, because any more would have been too much. The song is a perfect length. It's like this song was written from beginning to end on purpose, exactly the way that it is.
Agreed.
And
yeah, this one,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, this one could have very easily been dragged out to 3.5, 4 minutes.
Absolutely.
And we would not be as high on it as we are.
Right.
It doesn't overstay its welcome. It does a lot of cool things and keeps on moving.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to track 10, Halcyon. After this like stretch of clean vocal, pop centered songs, we get this intro that made me think the song was going to be heavier than it is.
Yeah.
Because we get this build up into this like thunderous like moment.
Yeah.
And then it comes back down. But what happens here is Courtney steals the stage from the rest of the band. Absolutely steals the stage.
Sickle, sickle, set me aside. Burn the bridge, no mercy tonight.
I like this one. This isn't one of my favorites again, but she absolutely steals it. This is one of my favorite Courtney tracks, let's put it that way.
She is the X factor. She is the thing that makes this band what it is. No offense to Michael or any of the other members that have come and gone, but what she does is gives this band, when she is doing those types of things, that is what makes Spiritbox the thing that stands out. You know, I think they're all super talented. These are obviously really good songs, but her voice and her presence, not just stage presence, but just vocal prowess is, on full display here for sure.
All right. There's a stretch from 121 to 135 that is just great. Like musically, it's great. But we run into the problem here that we have run into in the past, where when a guitar player or a drummer is wanting to do a solo, and this isn't a solo stretch, but it's when in other albums, when a guitar player or drummer or whoever is wanting to do a solo and the singer won't shut up. We have the same problem here because the band is actually doing some really cool stuff during that stretch. But it's like every time I'm listening to it going, okay, that's neat. That's neat. Damn it, Courtney. Okay, that's neat. That's damn it, Courtney. Now, I thought she was wonderful in the song, except between 121 and 135. That's my only criticism of her in this song.
So a couple other things I want to point out. The guitar nerd in me can't help but notice. I love the chorus chord progression because they play a pretty standard sort of 4-chord progression you hear in any rock song, but they add that like in between half note before it goes back to the like repeating of the chorus. It just gives it this little hint of like sinisterness that I think is really cool. And then at 3:27, it does that ugly dissonant harmonized thing that I really, really like. So this song I'm with you. This is a back end of the album kind of song.
Right.
It hits a lot of the same marks, but just not quite as catchy and memorable as some of the earlier stuff. But I think Courtney's performance is great. I think the chorus chord progression is great. And then that nasty riff at like 3:27 is just
okay.
ugh.
So I know the riff you're talking about. Because, all right, so after that stretch from 125 to 135, the song just kind of repeats itself, and it's fine. But then we get a false ending, and I don't like it anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And then it comes back for your riff. So your riff, where they just come back for some heavy. And the thing about it is, I really liked what they did before the false ending. And then that little bit of heavy they came back for, but I didn't feel like they needed to come back for that heavy. I feel like that heavy could have been stuck as like an extra track, hidden track, something like that. I liked it. But when I felt like the song was ending, and then it didn't, I didn't like that. Didn't like that at all. So, all right. So track 11, Circle With Me.
Is this the one that you mentioned earlier? Because I happened to notice on Spotify, this one has like 30 million more plays than any other song.
I'm sorry, what are you talking about? This is the one I mentioned earlier.
You mentioned a crowd favorite that people love.
This is a crowd favorite. Now, I like this song, but this is a crowd favorite. It is. It's like the report back from the lady when she went to go see him, and I've watched some concert footage of them. This is a crowd favorite, and yes, I did notice there were that many more views of it or listens to, and I was okay. Yeah, sure. So yeah, crowd favorite.
Yeah, not a monster favorite. It's fine. Kind of like how do you pronounce that? Halcyon?
Halcyon, yeah.
Halcyon, kind of like that one. It doesn't do anything wrong, but it just kind of feels like more of the same for me. Okay, so the intro with that dancey beat and that clean vocal, I thought we were going to get a little more of like a 80s synth rock thing. But instead we get this huge scream and this killer riff. All that's really good, but then it just sort of gets back into ugly dissonant chugs and a bunch of screaming, and it's just sort of, that's what I mean. Like that's the moments where I'm sort of, they're not wowing me. It just sounds like a lot of other bands of this nature.
So I felt like they wrote a Spiritbox song, they wrote a heavy song, and they kind of put in flag marks of what Spiritbox is. I feel like this was a really good song. I actually really enjoyed this one, but same as you, it didn't wow me. Now, I really like the chorus on this song. I think the chorus is fantastic. I do like the way it drops at 2:27 and she comes in screaming with the chugs. I do like those things, and I like how she closes on a scream. That's cool. But at the same time, this one I feel like would be better live. Like listening to it, I can hear how it would be better live.
I would like to. I might have to just pull that up on YouTube tonight just to see like what makes this a live thing. Like, is there a sing-along part, or they extend a bridge? Like, is there something that because as it is, I think it's fine. But I like we just said, it has like 64 million streams. Like, so I feel like I'm missing something.
So I'm gonna look it up. How many streams it has right now?
The second most is Holy Roller with 42 million. This one has 62 million.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Actually, I just got to that at the same time. Yeah, it's a big one for him. So, okay, let's round the album out and talk about track 12, Constance.
It's hard to wonder why you pressure and increment.
All right, so this is where I feel like Mike really got his chance to shine on this album. Mm-hmm. The song is good. I mean, it's a good song. It's a solid song, but it is a Mike song for sure. Like he doesn't do anything super great and fantastic, but he just is solid on this one. And I really appreciated that.
This one was giving me a little bit of that sort of NEW, new kind of thing, where they borrow very heavily from sort of the Deftones flavor of new metal, where you kind of incorporate the shoegaze and the sort of droning thing,
right?
Which I don't love. I think this song is cool. I think it's okay. It makes sense as a closer,
right,
with the way it kind of drags down, sort of. Again, sort of like on Halcyon, there's these cool, like, in-between chords that he plays that give it that extra little flavor to it that I think is a nice touch.
Right.
But overall, this makes sense as a closer, but it just kind of drags a little bit for me. I do really like kind of how heavy and sludgy it gets sort of near the end, but then the song actually goes out on a really pretty piano lead. So I thought those dynamics were pretty fun. Just this one is a longer one, I think.
It's
and
4:30.
To me, and it feels longer to me.
And I think the reason why it feels longer is because we do get this kind of shoegazy song up to 3:16, and then it just descends into madness for like a little over a minute. And then it closes and goes back to the piano, and that felt very last track for me. It felt very like, we're gonna go out on letting you know we're done here. And
I like that. I think that's a neat way to end the album.
Yeah,
but
I can't complain about any part of the song because I really enjoyed the song. Not necessarily the descent into madness, but it was one of those things like, okay, we're just gonna get through this and do it. But it's, you know, it fit.
Like I was saying as we started the episode, you know, like the first 3 songs and the last 3 songs, I'm all just kind of like okay with. It's that middle section that I'm locked in and having a great time. So I think what made it tough for me was listening to it from start to finish, especially if I was like in a position where I could listen to it multiple times, because then it's like, okay, I just listened to these 3 songs that I don't really love. Now we're starting the album over and I got to sit through this again. And that was sort of part of the reason I was struggling a little bit. But yeah, as a closer, this makes sense.
Yeah. All right. That's fine. Monster, what's new with you?
Hey, good looking. What you got? Cooking.
Honestly, you could make a case for just about anything on this album.
Yes.
For me in particular, I think there's 2 that from start to finish have the most new in them, and that's Hurt You. And The Summit. feel like those two in particular, and they're even sort of like different flavors of new, because Hurt You is that new metal that's sort of heavier, little more aggro in the verses. And then the Summit is more like the Taproot, Il Nino, little bit more melodic new metal.
Yeah,
but yeah, those two for sure.
I get that for sure, especially the El Nino section of new metal.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's kind of like whiny, emo-y, but still new metal because you're like bitching about people and stuff.
Right, exactly.
So, Danger, what's cooking?
Holy Roller.
Good choice.
Yeah, I think Holy Roller may just be my favorite song off of this album. I mean, I love this album. I think it's a damn good album. But that song, I mean, just that creepy ass intro, and yeah, every part of that song, just the whole thing. Holy Roller.
I can see that.
All right, you want to give me your closing statement?
Yeah, and let it be known that I have gone back and forth on my score a few times here.
I did too, actually.
And I think I'm comfortable with my number, but anyway, sure, I'll go first.
Yeah, go for it.
Spiritbox is a solid band that mixes modern metalcore with that new and big, thick modern production. They also have one of the most versatile and talented frontmen/frontwomen in the scene with Courtney LaPlante. The album weaves in and out of massive riffs and stunning melodies pretty much seamlessly. However, I do think the album as a whole is a bit uneven. A few of these songs are incredible, either through brutality or beauty, or sometimes a combination of both. But a few others feel kind of generic or just a little listless. For every The Summit and Holy Roller that really shows off how tight and dynamic the band is, there are songs like Yellow Jacket and Silk in the Strings that just sound like they're contemporaries with very little to make them stand out from the rest of the pack. However, with all that being said, there's a lot more that I like than dislike, and I like the new stuff they've continued to put out. Spiritbox is definitely a band that I think has star potential, and I look forward to seeing just how big they become over the next couple years. 1 to 10, I landed on 6.91.
All right, 6.91 from Monster.
Danger, how about you give us your closing statements?
All right. I wrestled a bear once into a Spiritbox. Spiritbox gave us the best they could, and it ain't bad. It isn't bad at all. Courtney knows when to make it harsh or soft. The band knows when we need to be heavier or need a breath of air. So I almost put a breath of fresh air. Or a fresh of breath air. Anyway.
A fresh of breath air?
Yes.
Classic.
Yes. If this and bands like Avoid are the direction metalcore is going, I will happily meet them in the middle. Spiritbox have more to offer, more growth, more great songs, more great moments. They might even hit all that growth on a sophomore release, but for now we will have to settle for the barrage of EPs and singles. Remember, kids, blue is eternal. I gave this album an 8.3.
Nice.
Yes. All right, a 6.91 from Monster and a 8.3 from me gives Eternal Blue a 7.605, putting it in the number 6 place, right below Falling in Reverse and right above Dragged Under. If you disagree with the score that we have given this album, then please shoot us an email at breakdownsbreakfast@gmail.com or head on over to the Facebook page and let us know what you think there. Let us know what you thought about this episode or what album you'd like for us to talk about in the future. Speaking of, Monster, what album are we going to talk about next week?
Next week, we will be doing the 2020 album God on the Run by the Hell Freaks. What do bus drivers put on their toast?
What?
Traffic jam.